It's an enormous joy, indeed a privilege and a humbling one at that, to be just one amongst this global community of courageous defenders of human rights and their supporters, and to honour in this way and celebrate such important work for the elevation of human dignity. And in this, and on behalf of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, Michelle Bachelet, who expresses her deep regret that it is I speaking to you tonight instead of her, we want to thank the wonderful city of Geneva for their ability to create such spaces as these. They are at the forefront of cities for human rights globally, and we honour their hospitality. We want to thank Hans and Dick and the wonderful jury of the Martin Ennals Award for your vision, your stamina and your courage. But most of all, the High Commissioner was so keen that she have opportunity to celebrate the nominees for this year's Martin Ennals Award. For, it's standing here with you, through you, that we have the privilege to be in solidarity with human rights defenders the world over, with those who struggle, who fight, who search, who imagine, and who insist, and often at great personal cost, but demand simply this: that all human rights be enjoyed by all. In these extraordinary laureates and nominees, the Martin Ennals Award has illuminated for us over 25 years now, par excellence this evening. In their example, we have a human face to courage. It's their work that places compassion and justice at the heart of public participation. It's their action that puts not complaint and wound at the centre, but solutions. Doable, affordable, compelling solutions rooted in human rights, answers to human wrongs. The Martin Ennals Award for Human Rights Defenders is passing its quarter-century mark. It's a resonant age. It's a time to consider just how far we've come over the course of this past century. Since 1994, in fact, enormous progress has been won, thanks in large part to human rights defenders and the milieu of civil society action behind them. Great progress in terms of undoing discrimination, enhancing health, decreasing hunger, dismantling extreme poverty. Today, there is a global architecture of organisations working to promote and defend human rights. There's international criminal tribunals. There's independent accountability mechanisms. There are national and regional human rights institutions. There are deeply rooted, locally bound human rights movements and civil society organisations. And since 1994, millions of people have worked bravely to demand a more lived version of those democratic values to which so many societies promise, and yet against whose measure so many fail. For all these advances, today, to put it mildly, we live in a time of great unease. Spiteful, vindictive narratives are whipping up mindless hatred between communities. In regions the world over, we can see the evidence of growing repression of these fundamental rights, the rights to participate in decisions that affect us, of our rights to come together, to organise, to express our views, to have our views heard. The threat and attack against civic space, civil society activists, human rights defenders is on the increase. Extraordinarily, in this decade, the numbers of laws and policies restricting the possibilities of taking part in society have increased, preventing the forming of associations, impeding receipt of funds, criminalising the provision of life-saving services, human rights defenders vilified as traitors and terrorists, confronting campaigns of hate against their work, of discrimination, of harassment and intimidation. Human rights defenders arbitrarily detained. Human rights defenders' movement impeded. Left unprotected to face threat, intimidation, gender-based violence, even murder. Surely it's extraordinary that those most at risk today are people defending the rights of women, people standing up for labour rights, those fighting discrimination against LGBTIQ people. It's journalists who are being targeted, those investigating and exposing human rights abuse. It is environmental defenders who are dying at unprecedented rates. And it is those standing up for migrants and refugees who are under grave intimidation. Friends, they stood up for us. We must stand up for them. We have to act more decisively to protect those under threat. We must honour more profoundly those who pay such high price. We must never forget their loss, nor take their contribution for granted, nor accept the impunity that so often accompanies the tragic treatment to which they're subjected. We must defend the defenders. Yes, it's true. We've got to step up our engagement with those around the world who feel far left behind by the rapid global change and their fear that is manifesting in so-called populist movements. We must understand that in their disenchantment with economic promises not kept, electoral commitments not met, and development fruits not shared, they are turning against all sorts of institutions, the United Nations included. They feel we cannot be trusted, that we cannot, as the United Nations, be trusted to act in their best interests, that multilateral action is an empty, hollow delusion. To those people, too, who feel their needs are being ignored and their voices left unheard, we must reach out. But it is with those whose rights are being denied, derailed and dismantled, it is with them that we must stand in clear-minded solidarity. We must do more. We must hammer home this message that criticism and dissent do not constitute terrorism. To the contrary, they are a preventive tool against development of grievances. And when governments shut down the voices of their people, they undermine the ability of the state to do its rightful task, to address important concerns and real needs. When they shut down their people, they erode the very sustainable development, security and peace agendas to which they otherwise pledge. It's why the High Commissioner asked me to thank all of you who have worked so hard to create the momentum that is the Martin Ennals Prize. Thank you for your leadership, your partnership, and for your stamina. Thank you for paving the way for us to go further together, to do more, to mobilise broader communities of support and solidarity across the world. This evening, we pay particular tribute to 3 exemplary human rights defenders, Marino, Erin, and Abdulaziz. It is such an honour to be in your presence. Thank you for the wonder of your work, for the succour of your courage, and for the extraordinary inspiration. And Erin, with whom colleagues in my office have worked for over many years, we are so deeply proud of your work and of all that you have done in regard specifically to gender-based violence. Friends, human rights defenders are simply essential to our common dignity. James Baldwin, whose literary mastery wielded pen in writing of wrongs, specifically of wrongs done to people of African descent. On one occasion, he addressed another extraordinary human rights defender, Angela Davis, who at that time had been detained in prison. And he wrote this: "We must fight for your life as if it were our own, which it is." We must fight for your life as if it were our own, which it is, and render impassable with our lives, with our bodies, the corridor to the gas chamber. Render impassable the corridor that leads inexorably down to the gas chamber. For he said, if they come for me this morning, they will come for you tonight. Kofi Annan encouraged us to see it in these terms. When the rights of human rights defenders are violated, all our rights are in jeopardy. All of us are made less safe. Well, friends, the reverse is true. We are more protected, we are more respected, we are more encouraged on our pathways to sustainable and inclusive progress because of Erin, Marino, and Abdulaziz. They stood up for us. Let's stand up for them. Let's stand up for human rights.